FE sector. He was until recently the Director of Quality and Transforming Learning at Barking and Dagenham College. He's an FE professional with over 20 years experience in the sector as a curriculum, teaching and learning development specialist. Digital transformation of business processes and approaches to learning has been central to his role, particularly in empowering teachers and trainers to take control of digital possibilities to future-proof the success of their learners. Now, Alfred has attended the Bett show 8 times, and I'd like you to start, perhaps because I think maybe some of our exhibitors are less familiar with the FE sector. Mm-hmm. Could you give us a brief overview of the sector, please?
A brief, well, I think some of the key features I think to bear in mind in terms of understanding the space we're working in and our ambitions and our challenges are, first there's the scaling. So a lot of FE is sometimes very large, so we've got multi-site operations, 20,000 plus students, very broad provision. So you've got something from pre-GCSE going up to master's programs. We have very varied starting points. Some of our learners, for example, have already had experiences through the education system, and they're coming to have a second attempt at kind of getting their lives, transforming their lives through learning. So we have that. We also have interesting starting point in terms of the professionals who work with us. So some people come from industry and start learning how to become teachers within the context of our organizations. That creates, I think, a very interesting and very responsive environment. So FE is very used to change. It's constantly being challenged to change, because obviously we're all about destinations. We're all about getting people to their next steps. And that is getting people to their next steps from a lot of different starting points. So I think all those things are worth considering. There's also, we're looking at an industry that's ever more digitized, so that's very pertinent to this particular session. We need to be relevant. So a lot of the things that for FE are of interest in terms of digital is really, it's our bread and butter. It's about being relevant, it's about being now, it's about creating opportunities. And we do have challenges because of the starting points that I've talked about in terms of our students and our staff. Both challenges in terms of capacity building, which is we need to make sure that we can get our staff to work in the ways we want them to work. Some of them left industry for a while and have been teaching with us, and we need to bring them up to speed because industries are moving forward. And also we need to make sure that we support kind of our learners, sometimes who have different blocks to their learning or different barriers to their learnings that they have accumulated over the years. So we have a lot of English and Maths retake students, for example. They're obliged to do them. Technology helps all of that. It helps building confidence, building resilience, and it also helps us with the logistics. And to go back to the scale of things, it helps us track progress of all those individual learners with all those individual needs and different starting points. So we've got learning management systems are very, very key for us. It helps us communicate across sites and create consistency in the pedagogies that we use. And it's not without challenges, because a lot of what FE does, it does by creating multifaceted learning experiences. So really, we run qualifications, we run experiences with employers, we run one-to-one coaching experiences, we're in a workshop, we're out in a field, we're in many, many different places, and we apply principles of learning to all those places. Technology sometimes weaves and creates a thread between them, so we get very, very excited about that as well.
So it's a vast sector,
yep.
Huge challenges. The thing I'm usually hearing about FE, we hear about the financial constraints in the school sector, but FE colleagues always say it's much worse.
Yes.
In FE. So you've really been affected by cuts and reductions in budget. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming you're coming to Bett looking for very cost-effective solutions to some very big problems.
Yes, we are. And I think it's key for us. Obviously, funding hasn't changed in the last 7 years. There's been a report, the Auger Review, which is now seeming to look at it. So there might be more money in the pot. Hasn't materialised yet. But it's obviously been an issue for the sector. And I think this idea of impact and value for money and products that we can check the impact of, that we can monitor, that we can check the progress learners are having, that learners can check the progress they're gaining through them, are key questions for us. Because obviously we want those products to reach across our sites, to reach across all the different levels that we have, and to meet the needs of all those different learners with all those different starting points.
So I'm thinking that Barking and Dagenham, which I don't know, the college, it's a multi-site college.
Yes, yeah.
So could you give some examples, and feel free to mention companies and products, where digital transformation is having an impact? In which sectors of your college would you say it's been most effective?
I think we've got a very broad range. So we've got some of our offers sometimes is working with companies like Pearl, for example, in Access for Health and Social Care, which just create blended models through direct partnership working. So that's one model. I've certainly worked with a company that's mostly based in schools called Aventio around action planning and customizing to the FE context. So that ability for me to work as a director and customize a product before it gets released has been really very impactful. In terms of learning and teaching, we obviously have explored different VLE solutions. And I think what's really important, we've approached different companies. What's really important for us is that stakeholder testing. So to be assured that there are usability tests, accessibility and inclusion is very key for us. So whenever I've brought in a company, say I brought a company like Canva, for example, all those things would help the business cases that then I take through the different tiers of management and up to the exec team and hopefully for approval. So I think those things are quite important. A big hot topic at the moment is VLE solutions. We're moving towards a more hybrid virtual learning environment. People talk about Moodle, they talk about Google, but really what we're talking about is how to make coherent all those experiences, from the little apps that we work to the learning management system, to the Google Classroom, and to the depository of where we put things. So I think companies that engage with us on that journey, but I'm going to talk particularly about my role, because obviously I've had people who lead in pedagogies, people who lead in digital, curriculum managers as well, inputting information into all of this. I think what's important for us is to really join in that journey in terms of not talking about things. So companies who don't just talk about things, they talk about the opportunity for learning that produces, and who understand that it needs to fit within what I would call, it's like kind of an ecology, isn't it? It's an environment for learning. That has been very, very helpful.
So you've given us a lot of clues there,
Yeah.
but to bring it down to the exhibition hall, what advice would you give our exhibitors if they wanted to attract your attention? How would they go about that?
I think the important thing is to understand, I think, that where the product sits, to be able to engage in that conversation in terms of what are the challenges. So we're taking people from many different starting points to particular destinations. If there is a link to the industries, if that product is emulating and learning a way that learning happens in the industry, please highlight it, because that will make our ears prop up. If it's something that integrates and there is an understanding as well of the ecology that we have. So we have learning management systems. So how does this product connect to it, or doesn't, or what does it do? How does it go across levels? So it's really understanding where we are, really, where we're coming from, and provoking us really into saying, this is how you can use this product within these challenges that you face. And I would strongly advise as well that there is some discussion maybe with some kind of quality people as well, because there are also awarding body requirements. And another thing that scares people like me in my role is we need to meet those requirements in order for qualifications to be awarded. So that research having been done is also really helpful. So to engage me is that. But I think I must say as well that in terms of Bett, one of the things I've done in recent years is actually prepare teams to go to Bett. So we've had Learning Resource Centre managers going to Bett, learning champions, digital champions, advanced practitioners. And it's important that there is something for all those roles as well, So the enthusiasm, and going back to what Abid said, something about trying things out, creating a safe space where you can, where you don't feel too exposed. I think those things are also really important. So there's a strategic and an actual trying things out and making me feel safe in trying things out. And the hard sell, I think I would concur with that, is also something that people have reported they don't quite like very much. They want to be understood in terms of their workflows, where they've come from, and they want to be able to try it out and have a conversation. Yeah.
Terrific. So what works in follow-up after you've, because I'm assuming here that developing a relationship in the FE sector is not something that's done over a 10-minute chat at your stand at Bett. We're talking about that might be the introduction to a longer-term relationship, and Abid, you said the same thing in the primary school setting. What sort of follow-up would you want from companies? What do you find helpful? What do you find a hindrance after the show?
I think it's helpful. I think that if that is agreed, maybe at the show. I think this is within my experience. Obviously, I've also had teams come in and request things through the show, and I've also had teams have meetings in the show where they kind of compile findings and things. But in terms of follow-up, I think it's important to really answer the key questions. So the key questions are: can I customize the language of this product, for example, because we don't quite label things that way. That is answered, and then it's done quickly. And I think when a company suddenly says, well, we actually can't customize that field, that there is a very direct approach to that. We can work on it together, or we can't work on it together. I think what generally doesn't go so well is when you get like a barrage of kind of very standard kind of literature that ignores that conversation that's happened, and you just get a sequence of it, and you think, but it's the conversation we had that I want to finish. I don't want to go back to the thing that I picked up at the show. I don't want to have that being churned at me again and again, because then it almost makes me feel that I'm not being listened to as well, or that, and it's not assuring me. And remember that, particularly in FE, there is quite a long chain of influencing people across the organisation for that product to take and to be integrated and to embed. And we need to be quicker on that. So companies are very quick on that. They say, we can't change that field, but let's work on it together, and then let's produce a case that you can then take to exec. That is wonderful.
And can you give me an example of where you met a provider, you started the conversation at Bett, and then down the line that provider came to be a fundamental part of your institution?
I think we've had quite a lot of success with Venture, actually, which was actually more based in schools. And I think the discussion is, what was interesting is was brought in terms of, let's customize this self-assessment action planning tool, and then that went into our HR system, and it's become a part of the appraisal system, and it kind of grew. So there were parts of the product that would fit perfectly, parts that really didn't fit at all, and there was follow-up lasted for about 5 months when it was mostly myself and my team discussing this secret product that we were tweaking before it was released. And that was very fruitful, and it was also very new to Venture, the idea of an FE college kind of approaching them. So that was a really good collaborative working together.
So my takeaways then are collaboration,
yep.
The ability to customize, the willingness of a company to see beyond the product as it is today, to think about how forming a relationship with you into the future would require them to make some changes, and certainly to listen to what the customer wants. So finally, Alfred, what will you be looking out for in January at Bett? And I'm sure that, like Abid, you'll be doing your homework, but what will you be looking out for in January?
I think really I'll be looking for the things that we're always looking at, but I think there has been a slight change recently. So I'll be looking at the possibilities to bespoke learning, to track individual progress, to meet individual needs. Technology can do fantastic things for that. I will be looking at accessibility. There's new legislation. We need to be very careful with that as well. I will be looking at all the things that excite me in terms of learning and teaching, in terms of the future world. But I'll also be looking at, I think, some understanding that is not about, because remember, I come from quite a responsive sector. We've bought a lot of things. We've put a lot of things in. We now need to be able to have a dialogue together, which is saying, this is the product and this is how it fits with others. And I think that's quite important. I think it's, so I think that has changed quite a lot in the sector. There are more astute digital strategies being developed. There are different models for delivering, which have got blended explicitly, which is really, it's about the experience. we're moving. The EdTech strategy is really helpful in terms of shaping that. It's a really good moment for digital, but I think we need to engage in the bigger picture together, if that makes sense. I will be having that expectation, whereas maybe before the excitement or enthusiasm of one app or one kind of product was enough. I think now we're talking about, what do we want to do for the learner's experience, and how does this emulate the world that we're living in and the world that we'll be working in the future. I'd expect those questions to be there.
Alfred, thank you very much for that insight. Thank you.
Thanks.